Hey, how you doing? Welcome to all you neurotypicals and fellow neurodivergents out there. Today we'll be discussing why no one in the Arab world talks about their mental struggles and why they find it shameful to express these feelings. According to people I know, their go-to image for when someone tells them they're going through something mentally is someone in a straight jacket rocking back and forth. When I had expressed that I felt like there was something up with me mentally, I was flat out told no. You don't lock yourself in your room all day, so you don't have mental illness. Because apparently that's also what mental illness looks like to them. In some cases, it may feel like they don't believe it, while in other cases, it feels like they do. When they start calling the imam or the priest, that's when you know they actually think that something is up. In most religious families anyway. And what's the imam or priest gonna do? Recite a few lines of the Quran, throw some holy water on you, remind you of God's greater power? That's pretty much it. However, the idea of talking to a mental health professional or a psychiatrist is almost taboo in very religious circles or very traditional families and cultures too. It's a dishonor to you and your family's reputation and your family's name, all that stuff. They'll just start mumbling to each other, we have a crazy person in our family, what'll people say about us, what'll people think of us? Thankfully, I live in the most progressive part of the Arab world. However, people here are still struggling a lot because most of us, if not all of us, are raised to suck it up, keep quiet, not to disturb the peace of those around you, and deal with it ourselves. Everyone is suffering. There are people that are worse off than you in the world. You have no right to complain. You live in a house, you have food, you have a bed. Why would you be depressed? And while UAE is progressive when it comes to mental health and providing help for those in need and for those that are struggling mentally, individual families do not care. The country cares, sure. The government cares as well. And they're willing to help individuals by providing these services. However, the people around you may not. This includes friends and family. Unfortunately, it can be really bad for men because boys here are raised with the pillars of toxic masculinity. One of them being never to talk about their feelings or never express when they're feeling some emotional anguish and shoving their feelings so deep inside that they never learn how to properly process different types of emotions, which can be the root of a lot more mental issues as well as a lot of compensation, which then not only affects the individual but everyone around them, like a ripple effect. You think this guy is bad?
With women, when they give you undesirable behavior, you need to punish it immediately.
Most, if not all Arab men may agree with his views because they were raised that way. But that's another topic for another video. And I have met a lot of men that are absolutely going through it. Even though it can be obvious that one is struggling with their mental health, people here just never address it. From personal experience, when old friends of mine discuss my thinking process or my odd behavior of isolating myself until somehow convincing myself to think the worst of them, they say, oh, she's like that because there's like a bean in her brain. So they acknowledge it because of how severely I was acting and reacting, but they don't label it or acknowledge it when I bring it to their attention. Which is strange. Because when I tell them I'm not feeling okay mentally, they never truly address it, even with my ideation, which is a red flag as big and as tall as Burj Khalifa, for crying out loud. Despite the complexity and importance of the topic, the Arab world still shows a lack of awareness regarding mental health problems and a dearth of mental health services and professionals. Mental health patients in Arab countries tend to express their psychological problems in terms of physical symptoms, thereby avoiding the stigma attached to mental illness. If someone is going through something mentally and they say, I got a stomach ache, or my leg hurts, or my arm hurts, so that people around them would probably take them more seriously because they wouldn't take it seriously otherwise. They also tend to underutilize mental health services to hold negative attitudes towards formal mental health services. Another issue is that of mental health practices in politically volatile and violent regions, where higher rates of mental health problems and psychiatric diagnosis have been found. In addition, women in Arab/Muslim countries are at paramount risk from mental health problems. A lot of people here just don't care that much of the way their thoughts are being processed. I only realized that my thought process wasn't normal when people around me would mention and go like, oh, I went to a really dark place today in my mind, I can't even tell you. And I'm like, oh, is that not a normal occurrence to you? Do you not think of yourself every day? Neat. Wonder what that's like. And also mentioned here is that a lot of women are paramount risk from mental health problems. Because honestly, feminism over here in the Middle East is not as progressed as it is in the US. It's very behind. Maybe not in the UAE, but in other countries. For example, only recently, when they crowned the new prince of Saudi Arabia, women were allowed to drive. There's also the abuse that a lot of women go through in the Arab community and the Arab world. If they're unhappy or they're facing problems or their husband is abusing them, they don't have the freedom to want a divorce. Basically, women and autonomy just don't go hand in hand when it comes to certain places in the Arab world. A lot of practices that were from way back when are still being practiced now. There's that whole honor killing. And there is also mental health decline in countries that are practically falling apart, like Syria, Palestine, Lebanon. I can't even imagine how difficult it must be for them over there. Poor circumstances are thought to have led an increase of suicide rates in Egypt as well as in the Gaza Strip. Financial crises have also led to an acute mental health crisis in countries like Lebanon, where there has been a significant uptick in calls to the country's sole hotline. Strong family bonds, a collectivist culture, low communal and religious acceptance of suicide, and lack of access to weapons and other objects of self-harm may serve as protective factors against in this region. Definitely. Where I live, guns are not sold to anyone just like that. Lack of reporting of ideation due to shame, lack of awareness of mental health support, and feelings of abandonment in one's face may be factors that make it more likely that an individual would seriously consider or attempt. High levels of adherence to the Islamic faith have affected low rates of, yet the stigma against and the cultural beliefs about mental illness, like believing that such ailments are derived from the evil eye, may prevent an individual from seeking help or treatment, which may lead to a greater likelihood that a particular individual may attempt. Stigma against and wanting to avoid public shame may also cause a family to misreport the cause of death for an individual suspect of dying by suicide, which would skew available data. You don't want to be known as the family that had their son commit suicide, do you? Some individuals are biologically predisposed to depression. Research suggests that several personality characteristics and temperaments of an individual serve as a risk factor for developing depression. People who are shy, have low self-esteem, lack self-confidence, work as perfectionists, and are self-critical are more prone to developing depression. Stigmatization of any mental health condition in any region worsens the problem. A society where mental health problem is associated with shame, disgrace, and disrespect and is considered as a taboo, people hesitate to talk about their mental health problems and are less likely to seek medical and psychological help. The internalization of problems results in increasing mental stress, which ultimately leads towards clinical depression and even suicides in most of the cases. You know what this means, fellas? Stop burying your feelings. Despite increasing mental health awareness throughout the world, the Arab world is still lacking. We are still way back when it comes to progressing socially. Probably not the United Arab Emirates, but definitely in the Levantine area and the Gulf, a limited professional psychological help is provided, but due to the cultural and religious beliefs, most people keep their issues to themselves and do not seek professional help, resulting in higher levels of depression in the region. Shame is a built-in part of our culture. That's why a lot of us feel shame when it comes to admitting to having a mental disorder or mental illness. A lot of individuals may consider the idea that they may be going through something mentally, but immediately just say, nope, I'm fine. I don't need anything. I don't need any help. I'll just go through it and it'll be fine. However, as the article says, doing this is just worse for you in the long run. Some say that they don't want to be open about their mental health struggles or their mental illnesses or their disorders because they don't want it to be part of their identity. They don't want to meet people and then have those people find out, and then all those people would see is ADHD, BPD, OCD. Even though those things are part of you, those things are why your brain is literally wired differently. And if there are people in your life that would only see you as your mental illness and they only identify you as a byproduct of that mental illness, then these are people you clearly don't need in your life. Mental illness is a byproduct of you. You are more than your mental illness. It's just a part of you. It's like being friends with someone that can't see past the one thing you like that they always point out as a flaw, and they don't see you as an individual past that. These may be a lot of people that you meet in your life. However, when it comes to working in a professional sense, there's always a separation between personal life and professional life. But when it comes to a mental illness, the line between the two kind of blurs, because while some people can work through the day and function normally despite their mental illness. Others find a difficulty in functioning properly because of their mental illness. So while it's fine to not let everyone know, you don't need to tell the world around you that I have this, but it's important to probably let your employer know in case you suffer specific episodes that can completely hinder your performance at your job. Personally, I don't really understand the shame associated with it. I don't really care to understand it either, because people will judge you no matter what it is you do in your life, whatever you say, however you dress. Sure, you might think, oh, maybe this is one less information to give them to talk about me so that they don't have the opportunity to talk about me. But like I said, people will talk about you either way. The music you like, or the movies you like, or the shows that you watch, the books that you read, down to the radio stations you listen to, and the month you were born in. The fact that I was lumped in with SJWs just because I'm a feminist is my Joker origin story. And it just revealed to me that people usually tend to think one-dimensionally, whether they're your family members or the people that you thought were the closest to you or the people that are indeed the closest to you. Okay, that's enough projection and criticism, let's move on. Far more than any other type of illness, mental health disorders are subject to negative judgments and stigmatization. Many patients not only have to cope with often devastating effects of their illness, but also suffer from social exclusion and prejudices. Stigmatization of the mentally ill has a long tradition, and the word stigmatization itself indicates the negative connotation. In ancient Greece, a stigma was a brand to mark slaves or criminals. For millennia, society did not treat persons suffering from depression, autism, schizophrenia, and other mental illnesses much better than slaves or criminals. They were imprisoned, tortured, or killed. During the Middle Ages, mental illness was regarded as a punishment from God. Sufferers were thought to be possessed by the devil and were burned at the stake. This actually resonates with me a lot, the possessed by the devil, because once I was having a very mixed episode with my ex-partner. I didn't know how to deal with it, I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how to express it, and my partner was like,
"Don't worry, it's just the devil is really possessing you right now. That's why you're acting out this way."
I wasn't diagnosed back then. The devil came into play a lot. During the Enlightenment, the mentally ill were finally freed from their chains and institutions were established to help sufferers of mental illness. Stigmatization and discrimination reached an unfortunate peak during the Nazi reign. The stigmatization of mental illness is still an important societal program. Can you believe it? We're in the 21st century, it's 2022. The general population is largely ignorant about this problem, and fear of the mentally ill remains prevalent. Although we no longer imprison, burn, or kill mentally ill as in the Middle Ages or in Nazi Germany, our social standards and attitudes are nonetheless unworthy of modern welfare states. Structural discrimination of the mentally ill is still pervasive. So I asked on Instagram, where most of my friends and followers are people that have lived in the Arab world, for their experiences. Someone said that their experience was awful, and because they were a male. Another person said, nothing, just need to suck it up hard. This is a culture that we grew up in, this is what we are exposed to and what we are told to do. Rub some dirt in it and move on. Mental health was stigmatized by older generations and only now is getting the spotlight. I can definitely understand why you'd say that your experience has been because of how it was stigmatized by the older generations. That's what all of us are going through right now. We're suffering through the consequences of the older generation. And unfortunately, this stigmatization has carried through onto this new generation, and it's great that it's getting a spotlight now more than ever. But I understand that your experience must have been because of how stigmatized it was in the past and throughout your life because of the older generation. But hopefully it'll be better moving forward. Mental health was getting a spotlight much earlier, but no one wanted to listen and no one cared enough to listen. They'd just say, oh, you're being a big baby. A lot of people didn't believe that these things were real unless it's too late and someone commits. No one bats an eye. No one takes it seriously, and any progress is you got cured. Shut the fuck up now and be normal. Very true, actually. If you're not locking yourself up in your room or doing things that are obvious red flags, and people just think, oh yeah, they're cured. They're not going through anything anymore. They're fine. Meanwhile, every day you wake up in a cold sweat and you just don't want to get out of bed. You just want to soak in that cold sweat and you don't have the strength to get up and brush your teeth or wash your face or do anything. That is definitely one of the issues that I don't think just the Arab world is going through, but many people around the world are going through as well. You talk about your feelings for once, you vent, maybe you're a bit loud, you get, we can't even talk to you or you'll be dramatic again. I think this is the worst response ever. This kind of reaction from people around you is just I don't want to call it a red flag, but it definitely puts some distance between one and whoever is reacting in this way. Everyone just wants people to see things their way. Being misunderstood and being thought of like that is a huge insult. And most of the time, the person who is trying to express their feelings aren't even being that over dramatic. Maybe just a bit loud, as the person said. But other than that, it's just a normal expression of emotions and feelings. Our society or the people nowadays or whoever you are surrounded by, they probably don't like feelings, so they just want to avoid it at all costs. It's actually really rare to find people that you can trust with the way you feel. They just say, I'm lazy. Lazy and stubborn are words that I've heard so much. It's just a form of mental health struggle that people don't want to acknowledge as mental health struggle. They just want to say, you're lazy, yeah, you're stubborn, you're blah blah. And it's really upsetting that they're going through that. I also asked on Reddit, what is your experience dealing with mental health issues in the UAE? The first answer is pretty much the reaction most people give to when others are trying to express themselves or express their emotions. Your mental health, be stronger, was my experience for a long time until I decided that toxic people can suck a dirty. This is exactly the kind of attitude you should have. It was kind of hard to open up about it to friends. Family doesn't live here. Ultimately, it came to a fight or flight situation, meaning I could no longer not do anything about it and give up completely or do something about it. I tried working out at home, started running online gaming. It kind of helped. It's really good to find ways to keep yourself busy, keep yourself moving. Working out is probably one of the best ways to do it, even though it can be absolutely impossible to start. Gaming is fun as well, as long as you're not in toxic lobbies. In general, Middle Eastern people don't take mental health seriously. There you go. Some people come out at the other end without help or medication, but some people might need professional help. No one will understand it unless they have dealt with it themselves. This is very important to clarify. Ultimately, everyone goes through mental illnesses differently, and everyone deals with it differently. Mental health care being expensive here got me to fight it myself, and now I think I know Kung Fu. But unfortunately, that's one of the problems that a lot of people in the Arab world or in the Arab community have to deal with, that they have to go through it themselves, because seeking professional help, even getting a diagnosis, is a privilege that not many people see as a privilege. Find a way to maybe save up from your allowance, whether it's your parents or from your job. Save up just as much as you need so that you can go and at least get a diagnosis. Ask around you from people that you know, or Reddit, or any forums online where you can find maybe something that is affordable. It's a real issue, and I understand that sometimes people here think it's all in your mind. It is all in your mind. And your mind makes up everything that you are. You react to certain things because of your brain. It's important to acknowledge that and also realize that that is part of the problem. What makes you who you are? Your brain, your thoughts, the way you see things, the way you perceive things. You just keep it inside you until you die. Every man suffering from mental health. It doesn't have to be that way though. We live in a society where men are still taught to not be emotional. My friends and my husband were more open and supportive when discussing mental health, coping with mental illness issues. Parents, on the other hand, believe it is a myth or a hoax. It's good to know that your partner and your friends were supportive of you opening up, because it can be really difficult to open up, even to the closest people around you. You never know how they'll react. I've gone to therapy on and off in the UAE. My family is very supportive about it. There remains issues that, even after discussing them with a therapist, I ultimately discussed with a trusted relative or a friend. That's great, because a lot of times in the UAE or any other place in the Arab world or in the Asian community, family isn't always that supportive about it. So it's really great that this person has found comfort with their own family, the people that you expect to be accepting of who you are and what you are, and that you find home in. It's really great. I hope that everyone can find this kind of comfort and this kind of openness with their families too. Downright terrible. Employers don't give a about your mental health. In fact, shouting at you is the norm here. I hope you can find a different employer, especially if your mental health is affecting your job or affecting the way you're working. Then finding an employer that's more understanding of it is more beneficial. Mental health here is fraught with challenges because of religious and family pressures, filled with cultural ideas about it. You'll hear things from cheer up or why don't you go shopping to you're going through a phase. I hope awareness increases and resources are made more readily available. People don't only only need help when something is wrong physically, but also for things that can't be seen up front. A stressful lifestyle with crazier work hours and unrealistic expectations are characteristics for any first world city. I see it every day with disengaged employees, lonely single people, unhappy married people, and everyone in between trying to fit in. I couldn't have said it better myself. You've seen how things are in the UAE and have clearly seen the way people act and how many people here are just floating more than anything, and how living in such a way can affect their behavior as well as their mental health. When you experience it and you see it firsthand, you can really understand more of mental health and how important it is. I used to try to seek solace and comfort in those closest to me, but mostly I keep it to myself. My husband believes anyone who suffers from mental health issues is weak. You just need to suck it up and be stronger because there are worse things going on in the world. That's true. However, that is a very broken and limited way of thinking. Exactly. A lot of people will dismiss the way you're feeling. I have no right to be happy. I have no right to be upset. I have no right to feel anything because there are worse things going on around the world. Others around you or people that you trust shouldn't just dismiss the way you're feeling and dismiss the struggles that you're going through. When I was younger, I used to believe in that too, but then it just made me a lot more miserable. It's just a whole cycle of never-ending unhappiness. Very closed-minded way of approaching it. That doesn't change all the trauma of life and childhood that affects your entire mental makeup, whether you like it or not. Trying to explain to a man how you're feeling and have them actually care or try to understand how hormones in general can affect your mental state, especially during pregnancy and postpartum, is laughable. Now, this is very exclusive to the women's experiences. If that's their outlook, don't waste your energy trying to get them to understand. Exactly. Out of all the guys that I've met and know, only one guy said,
Women can't catch a break because their hormones are just always going left and right and up and down, and
there isn't always a very stable state, especially during pregnancy, postpartum. Are you kidding me? Your emotional state is not at all stable. In moments like that, women need a solid and intact support system, whether it's family or their husbands or whoever their partners are. It's very important to be there for these women in those very sensitive stages of their lives. I learned very quickly how to deal. Keep it to yourself. No one cares about your problem. Now, this is facts. The truth is, no one cares. But I do. That's why I'm making this video. That's why I want to talk about mental illness and spreading awareness of mental illness. That's why I want to destigmatize it in any way possible. Speak to a psychiatrist and psychologist. They're objective and won't enable you or dismiss it. It's always good to talk to a professional. At the end of the day, people who don't understand or care about mental health do not have the capacity to be there for you and support you emotionally. Knowing that has helped me always say less than necessary to others when I'm struggling through a moment in time. Unfortunately, that is also true. You're going through something, many people that you expect to react to you in a different way react in a way that you're like, whoa, okay, I didn't expect that from you, but okay. And at least, it saves you the time and energy to ever confide in them again. My parents were skeptical, especially my mother, who did not want me to go to a psychiatrist because they were misinformed about the medication, thinking people get hooked on it. But when I started crying, saying that I want to die, she somewhat feared for me and booked me an appointment. When I went for my first appointment with the psychiatrist, I took her with me. We both went in and psychiatrist asked her questions about my childhood and when did she observe my anxiety started. After I started the meds, it will be 6 months tomorrow, and completing the weekly therapy sessions, she saw how good I became, much more relaxed and chill. Now she became somewhat of an advocate, recommending seeking psychiatrists and psychologists to people around her. Also note, for people unfamiliar with psyche meds, you can't get addicted to SSRI, which are serotonin boosting chemicals. What might get you hooked are the rarely/minutely prescribed benzodiazepine. You're only given a few pills and not a whole box. So this person is a great example of a success story here in the UAE. They were open about their condition and they showed their family how they were struggling and how much they were suffering. This led to the moment where their mother had no choice other than to book an appointment at the psychiatrist's office. And it's really great how this story ended. It's really great to see that their mother is actually spreading the word of mental illness and how important it is to take care of your mental health. This person converted a disbeliever into understanding mental illness and understanding the importance of mental health. It's really upsetting though that they had to absolutely break down in order for this change to occur, but at least it occurred. Better late than never, On the note of that, if you ever feel like there's something wrong with you, don't wait until the last minute. minute to see a psychiatrist or to get help before it gets to its absolute worst. It's really great to see how this story progressed and how this person is doing. It's so good to see that they've been on medication and on the right path to bettering themselves and improving themselves. I really applaud them and I really am so happy for them. Someone told me that one way to force myself or pull myself out of my depressive state is to look at the root issue and try to fix it. The root issue that's causing my unhappiness. Let's say I'm depressed because A, B, and C. And let's say I can fix none of them except B. Okay, I fix it. And then what happens after that? I feel glad that one thing can be fixed and maybe I can fix the other two. But then overall, I still feel, okay, and then what? And I'm sure a lot of people feel that way too. And a lot of people say do things that keep you happy, that make you happy. Okay, I do them. Is my depression cured? Do I no longer have this ideation? Is it just poof and disappear, it's gone? I'll get into it in another video. I believe that we still have such a very long way when it comes to acknowledging mental illness and destigmatizing mental illness in the Arab and Asian communities. At least in the US, it's kind of like the door's like this much open, not too much. Individuals seek change in cultural settings. We all do. Those who want help, those who want to get better. It's not impossible, but it's very close to impossible. It's just extremely difficult. Another thing that people seem to ignore or not be aware of is generational trauma. Two people that are going through it meet, get married, have kids, and pass on their trauma, their mental illness, and so on. And then their kids grow up to get married or get pregnant and have more kids and pass on to them their trauma, their mental illnesses. And the cycle just goes on and on and on, and it never ends. If I were to ever have children, they could possibly inherit one or more of my own mental illnesses. And we all know how the generations were before us. Not so good. So the fact that a lot of the newer generation may have something is not that much of a surprise. Factoring in that, as well as insane amounts of stimulation from social media, this constant ongoing noise, how much it would affect the later generation's mental health as well. But anyway, my bloodline ends with me. Unless my siblings end up getting married and having kids. My bloodline ends with me! What can be done about this? How can we bring about change after years of things being the same? Nothing. There's realistically nothing an individual or even a group of individuals can do to bring about such a huge change in culture and tradition all at once. It's more of a gradual change and a gradual growth. Feminism started in the late 19th and the early 20th century, and yet we are still fighting for it, especially here in the Arab world and in the Asian world. I can't tell you to donate to some shady charity that gives the promise of spreading mental health awareness, and I can't tell you to sign a petition that realistically won't do a single thing. It's absolutely useless. But I can tell you that we can start small. Word of mouth, talk with everyone you know about it, talk to friends, family. It's just raising awareness, right? Social media. So many different ways you can bring about awareness in these places. Ask family, friends, and coworkers how they're doing and really listen to their answers. If they give any indication that they're depressed or stressed out, let them know that resources are available to help. A lot of people who are going through something, they don't even think to contact a professional to help them because it's so far away from their thought process to get help. And also they think, I don't need any help, but in reality, they do. Open up about your own experience. One can encourage others to open up about their experiences by opening up themselves, letting other people know that they've also gone through it or that they're currently going through it. Educating yourself about mental illness is also one of the ways you can spread awareness about it. I know it can be difficult to get through to them sometimes because a lot of them were raised in a very different way, completely different mindset. Someday I hope that schools can include its importance through a proper educational system. There's sex education, there's physical education, so hopefully someday there will be a proper education regarding mental health education. The student counselor we had in my school wasn't any help at all. In fact, they made me feel even more isolated and a lot worse about myself. Protests aren't allowed where I live. However, if it's possible to have a protest in the name of mental health, then that could also help spread awareness. Peaceful peaceful protests, of course. While some of the newer generation wants to bring about change, keyword some, a lot of millennials and baby boomers will be stuck in their ways. And many people here are simply just not that open-minded to most things, especially change or concepts that they're not used to. Mental health, who gives a shit about that? Your legs are fine, your arms are fine, you can see, you can smell, you can eat, you can hear, you're fine. There is nothing wrong with you. So the only thing you can do is try. They grew up in a very different environment. Generational trauma. Encanto. Madrigals. I'm going to link in the description my psychiatrists and other helplines for the UAE. If you don't mind opening up to strangers, there are a lot of places on Reddit where you can vent out all your feelings. And if you want to try opening up to friends or family, you're free to give it a shot. Even if they do judge you, then they saved you a lot of time and energy of you confiding in them in the future. And at least you know you tried. If you're open to seeking professional help, then go ahead and do so. I encourage it. I know a lot of people don't, but I guess this is for people that have been struggling for a very, very, very long time and just don't see any light at the end of any tunnel and are struggling to find hope or a reason to live. If you can find a therapist that's affordable, then do that too. But it's important to know that your first therapist may not be the one for you. It can take some time to find a therapist that you can see eye to eye with, that's on the same wavelength as you. But just because it didn't work out with that first therapist doesn't mean you should just give up. Mentally healing is a long process. So finding one that's right for you will take time, but it'll be worth it in the end. Let's say you reach a point in your mental health journey where your therapist or your psychiatrist starts to recommend medication. Medication that can help improve your mental state and your overall being. It can be daunting and your first instinct is to immediately reject. And people around you will tell you that you don't need medicine in order to feel better or to help you through your mental disorder and how you can just do it on your own. Honestly, at this point, if you haven't already gone through the no medication route, then don't take the medication. Reject it. Try it out. I know that a lot of people struggle for a long time before actually taking medication. But if you have tried it and you've already gone down the long path of not seeking professional help and not taking medication that can help you, and you're just floating on the surface, just so close to that line of plummeting down to the bottom, then try the medication. Just give it a shot. You don't have to tell people if you don't want to, because a lot of people would rather keep this to themselves. So you don't have to tell people every little detail about your mental health journey. A lot of shame comes with taking medication, not just mental illness. Forget that. Now there's a whole new type of shame about taking medication. It shouldn't be that way at all. Unless you're anti-medication overall and you're anti-vax and you don't believe in modern medicine, you don't even go to the doctor, you don't go to the dentist, you don't go anywhere, then sure, you can stay in your lane. That's fine. But don't be just against medication to improve one's mental health. Just like how you take medication for high blood pressure or diabetes, this one shouldn't be any different. Even though shame can be very understandable when you try to look at it from other people's perspective. Heck, nowadays I feel shame for even wanting to drink coffee, because without caffeine I have no personality. Meanwhile, others around the world can function with absolutely no caffeine. So the fact that I drink coffee on days where I need to work makes me feel somewhat shameful. Does that stop me from drinking coffee? No, because I need it so I can focus on my work. Coffee improves my mood, my attention, my thought process. In order to do something or when I want to focus on something, caffeine really helps me. Everyone's experience is going to be different, but from my own personal experience, I was no longer in that state of limbo. Long periods of feeling like shit and moments of elevated excitement and happiness. Usually when I'm out with friends, definitely, but a lot of times it's just In the end, it is your choice, obviously. Don't let shame and the thought of others and how they might perceive you hinder your self-improvement. Now, I know I'm advocating the use of modern medicine as well as professional help and trusting big pharma. However, if you've gone down the route of not going to a professional or not taking medication and you're fine, you can survive without the two and neither of the two improve you in any way, then by all means continue down that route. If your depression or your anxiety or your OCD or your ADHD isn't so bad that it's affecting your life completely, then perhaps you don't need medication or professional help. I know a lot of people that are going through something mentally and it passes as fast as it comes. For some people it takes some time, while for others it's here and then it's gone. It really comes down to you as an individual and how you deal with things and what you prefer what to do, because in the end it is truly up to you. And even though I recommend taking medication and getting professional help, if that doesn't work for you and you're fine on your own, then you can continue to live that way, because it's your choice in the end. You're doing it for yourself so that you can feel better in the long run and improve yourself, your thought process, your overall mood. And remember, there will always be people in your life that will not understand what you're going through or what you're talking about. Always. They don't want to understand it sometimes. They just refuse. You're better off distancing yourself from them anyway, keeping them at arm's length, and it's less of a headache in the long run. I hope this video wasn't too long, and I hope it sheds some light onto the realities of how things are in the mental health scene in the Arab world, or the Arab and Asian community, to those who are not aware or familiar with it. And I hope that it encouraged those that are living under similar circumstances to try and take the first step into self-improvement and bettering themselves mentally. If it's going really bad, that is, and forcing yourself through it just isn't working anymore, I hope this video encouraged you. If there's anything you'd like to ask or want to comment on, feel free to do so in the comments section down below. I also talk about similar topics on my Instagram and on my Twitter, so you can follow me on those platforms as well. But I'm mostly talking about it this month because it is Mental Health Awareness Month. There's an older video I made where I played a game that revolves around mental illness and suicidal ideation. You can go and check that out as well. I talk about my own personal experience too with older friends and how it really f***ed me up. If you liked the video, then please like it and subscribe, because it'll really help my channel grow. Thank you for choosing to watch my videos. Here is your reward. I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Depression and anxiety is super common too. Literally everyone has them.